You know the story, a secret society pulling all the strings from the shadows, controlling governments, maybe even the world. It's a wild idea we've all heard. But is any of it true? Well, we're about to dive deep into one of history's biggest and most persistent conspiracy theories to finally separate the real facts from the fiction. So let's just get right to it. What even is the Illuminati? Was it ever a real thing? And could some version of it still be out there today? We're going to tackle these questions head on. And by the end of this, you'll have a much clearer picture. And here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll look at the modern mystery, what people think of today. Then we'll go back in time to uncover the actual historical origins. After that, we'll see how this tiny group became a massive legend, how that legend morphed into the conspiracy we know now, and finally, we'll deliver the verdict. All right, first up, let's talk about what most people picture when they hear that word, Illuminati. Because let's be honest, the image we all have in our heads comes less from history class and way more from movies, books, and yeah, the wilder parts of the internet. The story today is all about this incredibly powerful, super secret group, right? A cabal that's supposedly running everything from global finance to who's in office, using celebrities to flash their symbols and pushing us all towards some kind of new world order. It's a huge, dramatic, and honestly, pretty terrifying idea if you think about it. Okay, but to really understand where this giant myth comes from, you have to get to the truth. So let's hit the rewind button and travel back to the 18th century. To the Age of Enlightenment, where we can meet the real historical Illuminati. Now, the very first thing that should jump out at you on this timeline is just how short it is. Seriously, the actual historical Illuminati was founded in 1776, and by 1785, poof, it was gone. That's it, less than a decade from start to finish. That right there is probably the biggest crack in the whole conspiracy theory. So who were these guys during that short window? Well, they were a secret society, that much is true. But their goal wasn't world domination, not even close. They were all about Enlightenment ideals, things like logic, reason, and fighting back against superstition. Honestly, think of them more like a radical book club that had to meet in secret because their ideas were a direct threat to the power of the king and the church at the time. And their plan, when you break it down, was pretty simple, but for that era, it was totally radical. First, they wanted to promote scientific reason over old superstitions. Second, they wanted to get religion out of public and political life. And third, they wanted to limit the absolute power of the government. In a world run by kings who claimed to be chosen by God, these ideas weren't just revolutionary. They were seen as a full-on attack on the way things were. It was about thinking for yourself, not controlling everyone else. So this is where the story takes a really sharp turn. We've got this small group of thinkers, a group that was completely wiped out by 1785. So how in the world did it come back from the dead to become this legendary, all-powerful force? And let's just be crystal clear on this point. The original historical organization was found out, its members were scattered, and it was officially shut down. It was completely and totally finished. This really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How does a minor historical footnote get twisted into this global boogeyman that supposedly lasts for centuries? Well, the answer has a lot more to do with fear and politics than any actual facts. So here's how it happened. Right after the Illuminati disappeared, Europe was rocked by the French Revolution. Terrified conservatives were looking for someone to blame, for a simple explanation for all the chaos. And they pointed their fingers back at the long-gone Illuminati. I mean, remember those radical ideas about challenging the government and the church? They claimed that was the secret cause of the revolution. And because the Illuminati had been a secret society, they were the perfect scapegoat. You can't prove they weren't involved if they're not around to defend themselves, right? And from there, the sensational story just grew and grew. And that brings us all the way to today. That little seed of a myth planted over 200 years ago has just exploded into this massive pop culture phenomenon that looks almost nothing like the real thing. So this is the main thing to get. The Illuminati you hear about today, the one on YouTube, in the movies, all over the internet, it's not a real functioning organization. It's more like a brand, a meme, a piece of modern folklore. And we see this myth just everywhere. Best-selling books like Angels and Demons introduce the idea to millions. People spend hours online analyzing music videos for secret hand gestures and symbols. And of course, there's the big one, the all-seeing eye on the US dollar bill. But here's a fun fact for you.
That symbol was actually chosen for the Great Seal of the US years before the Bavarian Illuminati even existed. It's a much older symbol that has nothing to do with them.
Okay, we've gone through the history and we've gone through the myth. Now it's time to put them side by side and lay out the final verdict once and for all. And this slide just nails the difference perfectly. Over on the left, you've got the historical truth, a small club of thinkers in Bavaria, around for less than 10 years, who were pushing Enlightenment ideas before they got shut down. And on the right, the modern myth, a huge, ancient, global cabal that wants to rule the world and secretly controls everything. I mean, they couldn't be more different. So let's wrap this up and answer our first big questions. Was the Illuminati a real organization? Yes, absolutely. But is it still around today? No. The group we hear about now is a powerful, fascinating legend. But that's what it is, a legend, a myth, not a reality. But that leaves us with one last thing to think about. If it's not real, why is this idea still so incredibly popular? Why do so many people want to believe in it? You know, maybe it's because it gives us a simple answer for a very, very complicated world. It makes it feel like someone, somewhere is actually in control. And in a world that often feels chaotic and random, well, maybe that's a story some of us just need to hear.